Emotions. Emotions affect us all every single day. And this is because we are humans and we have the ability to feel and interpret our emotions. So we're able to know when we are feeling sad, when we are feeling happy, when we are feeling angry or even anxious. But what if I told you that emotions are actually a valuable source of data that, we can use to actually not only change our habits, but also change the way we view things and the way in which we make decisions without even knowing that emotions are often involved in those processes when it comes to making the right decisions. So in this video, I'm going to break down what emotions are, why emotions matter, and how you can begin to really unpack and decode your emotions and your emotional system so that you feel more in control of your emotions rather than your emotions controlling you, the decisions that you make about your health and your life. So, what are emotions? Emotions are actually made up of neurobiological events, and those sort of neurobiological signals and events that are created in the brain actually pass down to the body. So if you think about it in terms of the brain sending messages to the body about a specific situation or a trigger, that then, your body will feel and interpret, and that interpretation is the emotion. So in kind of stressful situations, this can be sort of signaled as a label. So that label could be threat, that something bad is about to happen. And the emotions that come through that could be fear, there could be guilt. But in those more sort of pleasant situations, it could be excitement. So all the way through, emotions and the body and the mind are all connected. And emotions are a way of the body telling you to really stop and pay attention. So another example is anger. So if you've ever felt angry or certain situations make you feel angry, for example, then it's about thinking about the boundaries. So has a boundary been crossed in this situation? And is that what is making you feel, that anger? Another example is anxiety. Many people I see, have anxiety often because they're anticipating a situation. So they could be thinking about what's going to happen with regards to an appointment with their doctor next week. What are their blood test results going to show in the next round of, blood tests? And that anticipation and worry triggers emotions. Again, it triggers things like fear, sadness, frustration. And often then what happens is that people will try to avoid those emotions, or they will try to kind of push them to one side or ignore them. But actually, by doing that, it doesn't actually, resolve that situation. It doesn't actually, help that emotional regulation process. So, that emotion next week when you have that appointment is likely to come back because we haven't dealt with it in that moment. So the truth is, emotions are not the problem. When you feel that emotion, it's often better to kind of sit with that emotion. But lots of us don't do that. And often it's because we don't know how to. So emotions are not the problem. And in a way, we want to change the narrative around that. So rather than thinking about them as a problem, maybe think about them as the messenger. So an example here would be, think about your car. If you drive a car, every car has some kind of dashboard, and that dashboard often will flash. There'll be a light somewhere on one of those icons that will flash if there is something wrong with the car. And that warning light, we often don't ignore that, do we? We kind of might ignore it at the beginning, but over time, in the next day or two, we will attend to that light by either taking the car to the mechanic or trying to figure out what's going on. So be curious as to what the issue is, because we're not experts necessarily in fixing cars. So in the same way, it's applying the same skills of that sort of the curiosity around, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What's triggered the emotion? And, what do I need to do right now to really understand what's going on with this emotion? So what I'm trying to say here is we want to make friends with our emotions and really listen and tune in and not avoid those emotions, because actually we end up creating this vicious circle. So why do we struggle with emotions? Well, it's kind of not a one-word answer. I think there are so many different reasons why some people are quite good at interpreting their emotions and dealing with them in the moment. But for some people, it's something that they have not been taught to do. And the world that we live in now, it's kind of that mentality around, keep busy, let's not worry about it, just stay positive, get on with it. There's kind of that, mentality around thinking and taking the time to deal with certain issues. But actually that does not solve the problem. It does not mean that that emotion is going to pass forever. In fact, what it does mean is that the emotions are likely to return again, because we are going to come across situations that will trigger us, and those same emotions will probably come back again and again. So not facing the emotion is actually, it does more harm than good. And what the research shows is that the body actually, if we suppress those emotions, they store within the body, they show up in the body, they impact on our biological systems, our physical body. So for example, headaches, fatigue, pain, there's lots of research now showing that actually our emotions and the signals that those emotions send to the body over time can create more physical health problems. And actually, it's much better to express emotions and to really try to work out what is going on and how to manage those emotions, so that your body's not going through the same kind of struggle each time you're faced with a difficult thought or emotion. But how do you do that? So if there's something you haven't been used to doing, then again, like from my previous videos on habits, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not just a switch you can turn on. So it's about kind of really learning, like you are today in this video, about emotions. But what I thought would be useful is to share some of the tips and techniques that I use with my clients and patients when it comes to helping them reset their emotional system. And at the core of the work that I do is very much about connecting the mind and the body and helping people to really make choices and decisions in harmony with their mind, body and emotions as well. So here are my top 5 tips to help you decode emotions and make friends with your emotions over time. So give yourself time is actually not on my list, but I will add that to the list, because giving yourself time is so important. It's important for so many reasons. Number one, being patient. I think we live in a world that it's I've said this before, it's so fast paced, it's so instantaneous that we think that by something not happening so quickly that there's something wrong, or we are doing something wrong. So being patient with yourself, giving yourself time is really, really important. So to add to patience, I will then say, name the emotion. Start to really take a bit of time and pause and think about what it is you're feeling. Just, ask yourself really simple questions, or notice those feelings. So like, I feel anxious. This is making me feel a bit annoyed, a bit angry, or that I didn't make me feel comfortable. Just really start to unpack what it is that you're feeling, and just start to kind of connect with that, because the more you do that, the easier it will get. And by pausing and reflecting on that emotion, you start to find better solutions. You won't spend as much time worrying about certain, events or triggers or people even. So name that emotion, and just watch how over time the intensity, even when you're faced with that situation again, the intensity of that emotion starts to decrease. So it loses its power over you. Okay. The next one would be to tune into your body. So number 3, tune into your body. Really feel that emotion. Often people say to me, I feel it. I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my shoulders are really tense, or my stomach is feeling really, really like, it's turning, it's feeling knotty, or my legs are a bit tense or shaky. So really tune into the body and notice where that emotion is. And then just take a few deep breaths. Just breathe in to that emotion. And again, just notice how it will start to melt away. Just by paying attention to that emotion, the intensity starts to decrease as well. And number 4, as I said earlier, just be curious. Be curious about what's going on here. What is this emotion trying to tell me? Why am I having this emotion? Or why has this person just really got to me? And just think about that. And what will happen next is that it will kind of help you to understand not only yourself, but why you feel that way in that situation. And rather than reacting, you might find that you're more reflective, and therefore you are changing the way you show up, probably next time if you're facing a similar situation, in terms of how you might deal with that situation. You might actually respond in a way that you want to respond, rather than suppressing that emotion or frustration even. So just be curious. And then just to add to the next point, so point number 5 is just to note it down, journal it. I always say to people, just take a note, because actually what psychological literature shows is that written emotional expression means that you're releasing those thoughts and emotions out of your body, out of your mind, onto a piece of paper. Just by the simple process of writing it down can really help to release the emotions, release those thoughts. So they've actually, not only have they come out, but then it just helps you to move on, but also then reflect and to then find solutions. So we want to be thinking about perhaps that problem solution type technique here as well. And then the last one, number 6, and this one I would hope that we all try to do on a daily basis, is be kind to yourself. Don't blame yourself for feeling that emotion, or feeling that emotion again. Just know that you are human, and we are actually very lucky to be having emotions. And actually, like I said, emotions are not the problem. It's sometimes what we do with those emotions is what creates the problem. So be kind to yourself, and over time, try to remove that judgment label of why I feel this way to I am feeling this emotion, and then think about what next. So why is this important? This is all important because to make positive health behavior changes or to create that rich and meaningful life, which I'm hoping we all want, is that dealing with these emotions will help you to decrease stress, improve sleep, because sometimes these emotions can keep us awake at night, triggered by those unhelpful thoughts. If you're on a weight loss journey, it was going to help you to make better decisions when it comes to your weight loss journey. And even more important is that emotions are often the silent drivers behind your choices, and we don't often realize that. So by connecting with your emotions, you're going to understand yourself better, you're going to create better boundaries, build that emotional resilience and self-compassion, which are all key to sustaining long-lasting, healthy habits and behaviors. So I hope you found this video useful. Make sure to like or subscribe and share this video with anybody that you feel might benefit from understanding more about emotions. Let me know in the comments section what emotions you often struggle with and which emotion you might start to think about more deeply. And start with using some of those techniques that I've shared with you today. So thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in my next video.